find a way to live with each other. When Jesus was there in the synagogue, you see that the beginnings of the rift that's going to come, because Jesus is talking like one of the prophets, and he hasn't gone through the procedure that one would normally go through with the people at the top of the, of the people who make all the decisions and who's going to be doing this or that, and whether they really have this authority and it's come directly from God. That's not something that they just find every day or even every 10 or 50 years. But there's something about the way Jesus conducts himself, the way he orders these problems, these I don't know exactly what what is it called? The unclean spirits. I don't know how those unclean spirits got there, and I don't know exactly what makes them unclean, although it is tempting to try and take some of today's people that are in the news all the time and ascribe to them an unclean spirit, but that would be at odds with what Jesus would want us to do, I think. But in any event, here's what happens. Jesus is there, and he is hungry, and he went along with his friends, and this is going to happen right after the part we read. Jesus is going to go ahead with the people who are with him and find a place where they can sit down and have a meal. And that seems simple enough, except that there's some discrepancies among the people, how they are going to go forward from the day, and what it means if Jesus can do some of the things they're seeing. The first thing that happens when Jesus leaves the synagogue and he goes with some of these men to where they live is they get to a house, and the woman in the house, the one who's in charge of food, is sick. And she's on her bed, and she cannot provide any food for these gentlemen who have come from church. You know, church is over, and now we want to have something to eat. And there isn't anyone who can fix it. The idea that men could cook, I think, was not yet invented. So, anyway, Jesus goes into her room, and he heals her. And she gets up, and then she comes out, and she takes her place where she was, headed before she got sick, so that she could fix some food for these guys. And every time somebody reads this, depending on who they are and what kind of mood they're in, they will point out that Jesus, healed this woman so that she could work. And she could work for him and these other people who are there. And that doesn't seem fair. Shouldn't she get a little time on her own, and can't somebody else cook? And I was thinking about this, and I don't know, other people have said this as well, but the thing about this woman and making her whole again is that this is what makes her feel whole, that she can do the food for these people. And if someone is in her house that she has never met and that is hungry, Everything in her says, fix some food for this person. Fix some food for all of them. And if she can't do it, it's just going to make her feel awful. And it reminded me of when my older daughter and her husband were living with us for some time. He had a lot of friends from India, and they would occasionally come to our house, and then they would, stay for maybe a couple hours, and occasionally the whole day and the night as well. And I remember Arturo coming in one day and said, "Is it all right if these guys spend the night here? They'll just sleep on the floor in the living room." And I said, "Well, they're gonna need a pillow." He says, "They don't need a pillow. They're used to not having a pillow." And I said, "They are not staying here without a pillow." And I went and found pillows and clean pillowcases, and I don't care what you do with them, but if you need a pillow, you've got one. And I think there's a lot of people, men and women, who would feel the same way about all kinds of things. If you're going to do something and it's going to be something uplifting, something that shows that they're cared for, you want to do it right. And so it was such a miracle when this woman was relieved of whatever illness she had. As we get more and more entwined in what's going on with the rest of the world, it is so easy to say, well, if they just did this, then everything would be fine. And if you just do this, I'm sure you'll feel better too. And we make all kinds of assertions, we make all kinds of judgments, and we forget that we are all part of one great group of people who are now living on this land, and some of them are being forced to move from their houses, to move from the land that they've always been on. And we don't think too much of it unless it actually impacts us. And it comes back to this whole idea that the prophets that Jesus is lifting up and that have come to these people, the prophets are there to explain that it's time to pay more attention. For a long time, the whole deal was just getting from one place to another, to finding a spot that they could call home. And now it's time to do more. And for us, I don't know what more is, because we have lots of things we've already done. I was thinking when Mike was going through all the list of things that are happening, and I was thinking, wow, this little church does all kinds of stuff. And we do, and it's good. But it isn't everything, it isn't putting anybody in a house, although it might be. Because if you get food and you can take care of your kids and live a little bit easier, maybe, eventually you'll be able to buy a house or get an apartment or something like that. But we have this privilege of being able to go in, to do what we say we're going to do, and then to leave and go back to the homes that we live in, to the jobs that we have, to the plans that we have made already for what we're going to do in the next couple days or the next couple years. And the idea that whatever needs doing is, it should get some doing, but you know, I can't do everything, and I already had this all set up, so count me out. We have, though, the benefit of some folks here who don't let that happen. And it comes to mind, Lanny, planning all of these cultural responsive dinners and finding people who will come and talk and putting together recipes and finding out about this country. And it amazes me every time, because who has the time for this? And you know what? She does 100 other things too, just like a lot of the people here. So it's not as if, you know, she doesn't have anything going on. And there's other folks, people who are working to try and bring the city more aware of the need for low-income housing, something I gotta believe that they're not pursuing, because it's just not, nobody really wants low-income people, you know? I asked the mayor about this once, not the current mayor, one of the previous mayors, about that, and he said, well, yeah, and that's why we don't have any of those trailer parks like they have in Montrose. Well, you know, I have been through a few trailer parks, and they're not the best place to live, maybe, but if you don't have a house, that's a real step up. You've got a bedroom, maybe two, you've got a kitchen, you've got a bathroom. What makes anyone not okay because they live in that place? But we have to take the initiative, whether it's, you know, somebody in bed and unable to get out of bed when they really, really want to be with the group that has just formed itself, or someone who is trying to decide how to bring more peace to the world. And we look at where we're at and what we do, and we should feel proud of ourselves. It is nice to go to that food pantry. I wasn't there at all this year, but a couple of years ago, in 2000, I think it was, I think we were still at the old place, but maybe we were at the new place. But anyway, my husband Steve was there along with other people, and he was doing things like, this is the old time, putting in how much, the weight of the food that the person was getting, so that, you know, you could keep track of that. He was doing all that, and it was only a few days later when he ended up in the hospital where they said, you know, we're not going to do any rehab because he wasn't, he had problems before he came here. And I thought, and I told him this, I said, he was working at the food shelf, you know, a week ago. Well, yeah, but it doesn't say anything in our files. It is one of those ways that perfectly good and wonderful people try to expel those who are going to be a little bit more troublesome than somebody else. In any event, I'm glad that we are here this morning. I'm glad that we get to listen to these hymns which carry with them so much of our feelings feelings that we can't otherwise express except through music. So, why don't we have our next hymn, I Love Jesus, number 52.